was dropped.
New DNA evidence has just been uncovered which points the finger of blame at convicted murderer Robert Napper. Colin hopes that now he'll be able to clear his name for good. Welcome, Colin. What is it, do you think, about your case? Normally, people who are acquitted are afforded sympathy and compassion. What is it with you that means that even though you were acquitted, you were still vilified throughout the land?
That was all down to the tabloid newspapers more than anything. For some strange reason, they had it in for me. They thought I got off on a technicality. And up to that point, my name had been blackened anyway by so many false stories about me in the newspapers, of which I'm still fighting today.
False stories like?
Well, calling me a sex offender. I have not committed any sexual offence at all. Mm. And I have letters from the police themselves admitting that I am an innocent man in relation to this. There is no trace of any sexual offence committed by me.
Mm. There was the famous honey trap incident, of course, which was what led to a conviction, with a undercover policewoman who set you up. But I think that people were surprised at the time with the things that you discussed with her, and that also can't have helped, because you were alleged to have said that you knew the position and where the body was, and that...
Everything that was proven inaccurate in the end. It was stories I was making up. Mm. And at the end of the day, all it was just stories. I mean, there are people called authors out there who actually make a living from writing this sort of thing, and nobody ever suggests that they're sex offenders.
But your sexual fantasies that were in the letters...
They weren't fantasies, they were just stories.
Well, that is a fantasy, isn't it? A story is a fantasy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really have sexual fantasies.
Well,
I mean,
why did you write stories that suggested that you were keen on knives and killing and blood?
The stories were being instigated by the woman known as Lizzie James, the undercover policewoman. Mm-hmm. I was writing normal sexual stories for her, just normal everyday stuff. But she was leading the stories higher and higher, claiming that she was into the occult, she was into Satanism and what have you, and that's the kind of thing that turned her on. Mm-hmm. And I was just upping the stakes into stories, you know, adding these parts of the stories.
Were those the things that turned you on as well?
No, it wasn't, no.
You just thought, oh, well, just...
I mean, I think my ex-wife could tell you that I'm very boring.
You say that, actually, you have said that the women you attract now are the sort of women that write to prisoners on death row.
Yeah, it's that same kind of element. I still have a stalker today. He bombards me with letters, and she appears on my door. She scrawled in lipstick obscenities across my door because I refused to have sex with her. Mm.
How do you think you're perceived by the public?
There are two kinds of people. There are those who are intelligent. They can see right through things and they can see what's what. There are those who go back to the Dark Ages, we've still got them around today, who executed innocent people because they feared that they'd done something and they didn't do anything at all. We're always going to have those people, and they're the ones I have to contend with for the rest of my life.
So you feel that you are perceived by people as somebody who was lucky, who got away with murder?
Yeah, there'll always be these people.
Even though the courts acquitted you, you're an innocent man. And how would you describe yourself? You say, oh, well, my ex-wife would say I'm boring, but how would you describe yourself?
I've always been a sedentary type of person, and a solitary person too. I live quietly with my dogs, always have done. The major highlight of my life is when I'm playing some game on the computer, and that's it, you know. Yeah.
And yet, the name Colin Stagg is a very famous name. You are a very famous man, and whenever anything is mentioned about the terrible death of Rachel, your name is brought in the frame, and people would also say that maybe you encourage that. You don't keep a low profile, really. You allow journalists to come in, you appear on programmes like this.
It's to clear my name, that's all it is, just to prove my innocence and clear my name. And people always say to me, why don't you go away, why don't you hide, why don't you change your name and move from the area? Yeah. I mean, that's the actions of a guilty man, you know. I've done nothing wrong, and at the end of the day, I just want to clear my name, and that's all.
What's your life like now? Have you got friends, people you can talk to?
Not in acquaintances, more than anything. People have relaxed a bit more towards me now since this recent news. I feel a bit more relaxed in my life now that there is a much stronger suspect. Yeah, and I've just got to basically see how things develop.
So you've noticed a difference around you with the way people treat you now?
Yes. There's always been people who shout abuse. These are people who actually have history of violence towards women themselves, which is ironic. But now they're strangely quiet.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested as well in bits that were true and bits that weren't, and bits of stories that you have told journalists and subsequently said, no, I made that up, about going to the spot on Wimbledon Common where Rachel was murdered. And I think I read a story that said that you would sit there and meditate and hope to get the name of her killer through. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
But how did somebody get that story? Did you tell somebody that and just think, oh, that's a story, they'll go away?
I said it as a joke more than anything to somebody, and they obviously went running to the newspapers. And
well, you're obviously not a dumb man, but that seems to be a particularly daft thing to do. To say as a joke, which is not particularly funny, that I go to the spot on Wimbledon Common and meditate and try and get the name of the murderer.
It wasn't as all that what it said, in a how did the tabloids exaggerate a little story,
But even that as a basic story, even without any exaggeration, if you did that...
That was in the early days, and, obviously I've learnt my lesson, knowing that there's people out there.
And do you think it was things like that's what's prevented you from getting the sympathy and the understanding? Yeah.
That's why
you haven't done yourself any favours.
Yeah, that's why since then I've been very cautious about who I speak to,
Yes.
Once bitten,
And the stories of you enjoying naked sunbathing on Wimbledon Common, is that true?
I used to, when I was a lot younger.
And do you still have an axe with you sometimes when you go out? Because you did at one stage.
No, first of all, the nude sunbathing. That was because I just got over a very serious illness. I lost a lot of weight, and I've always been very self-conscious about the fact that I'm not that attractive. And I decided to improve my physique. I started to weight train, and then I thought if I get an all-over suntan, it'd make me a little bit more attractive. And that's all it really was. It was just to get a suntan, It was nothing sexual involved in that.
What about that altercation that Fern was mentioning? Because there was that row on the common with the guy, and you produced the axe.
This was a man. Up to that point, me and my wife, we were receiving loads of death threats through the post, and my wife was becoming very paranoid about this. She persuaded me to carry a weapon to defend myself, because at the time, I was slight built, I couldn't defend myself.
You see,
but when this happened, I just got to point out that this man, he was with his young boy, and we didn't think there was going to be any threat with anybody there. But he suddenly lunged at my wife and punched her in the face. Now, I turned round to protect her, and then he laid into me. And, of course, I had this axe on me. I was going to use it as a deterrent to scare him off. The axe wasn't used. We just ended up in a punch-up, and that was it.
Well, you're not on any kind of trial here. You've been acquitted, and you're answering questions that were just sort of confusing through newspaper reports. But that's the trouble with this kind of notoriety and talking to journalists and coming on shows like this. But your main aim, you say, is to clear your name.
Yeah.
The matter of compensation, which is a possible one, if another suspect, as has been suggested in the papers, is proven inconclusively to be the murderer, you may receive. Is that what this is about? To bring it up 12 years later to say, I'm the one who lost a year of my life in custody, and now please may I have some compensation?
My main goal is to get my name back. I'm very proud of my name. This has been an affront to my late father, who I was very close to.
Yeah.
And I just want, for his sake, so that he can rest in peace knowing that his name is clear, through me.
And what about relationships? You say, you've said a couple of times, I'm not an attractive guy, and you sound lonely. I mean, you sound like you're on your own. You don't have many friends. You've got nodding acquaintances. Do you think that if this new suspect is convicted of the killing of Rachel, that maybe you stand a chance of some sort of relationship, some sort of friendship?
I don't know. I think it's a bit too late now. I think there might be the odd woman, and I mean that loosely, who might be interested in me because of the notoriety of my name. But I'm not interested anymore. You know, I'm happy with me, myself, my company, and my dogs. As long as I could be left in peace, I'll be happy.
Okay. Colin, thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Now, we're going to take a quick break, but still to come, we have Tom Parker Bowles, another man with a famous name. It is Camilla's son, on cooking with his mother.